Welcome to episode 233 of Sports Geek. On this week's episode, I chat with Live Graphic Systems founder Luke McCoy about opening up broadcast options for all sports.
Welcome to Sports Geek, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host who owns more domains than he needs, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. Yes, my name is Sean Callanan, and you are listening to Sports Geek. You can send me a message on LinkedIn and tell me that you listen. Tell me which episode you've recently listened to or which one you liked. Thanks to Kim Hunter, who did that recently, sending me a message on LinkedIn saying that she'd listened to the Dave Harris and the Kate Palmer episodes and liked them. Or send me a DM on the Twitter at Sean Callanan to either just say you listen, or you could be a really good bloke like Neil Horowitz was last week, who sent me a DM to tell me that we'd put the wrong MP3 file in a recent episode that we had to update and patch to get it into your podcast feeds, because the Sports Geek podcast will be available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and of course my favourite, Pocket Casts. Other than using platforms like LinkedIn or Twitter, you can contact me the old-fashioned way. Not fax, but email. Sean at sportsgeekhq.com is how you can get me, or you can go to sportsgeekhq.com to find out all things Sports Geek in what we're doing and catch up with previous episodes. Before I get into my startup series conversation with Luke McCoy from Live Graphic Systems, just want to talk to you a little bit about my Pick My Brain sessions. You can simply go to sportsgeekhq.com/pickmybrain. You can book in for a 2-hour session to dive in on the topics that you want to dive in on, whether it's looking at your digital strategy, looking at a particular platform, looking at a campaign, looking at how you're activating with your sponsors, or a general education session on what are the latest trends. Please, you can book that by simply going to sportsgeekhq.com/pickmybrain. You click the prompts, pick the time using my Calendly link, and pay for it all, and it's all good to go. And we'll be booked in for a 2-hour consult tackling the issues you want to talk about. Now, on to my interview and my guest with good mate of mine, Luke McCoy. As we mentioned in the podcast, I think the last time we caught up, we were in New York for a little impromptu Sports Geek Nation meetup. Luke McCoy is from Live Graphic Systems. Liger, as they are now known, LIGR systems.com. This is my chat with Luke McCoy from Live Graphic Systems. Very happy to have a guest here at Sports Geek at Creative Cubes. Welcome to Luke McCoy, co-founder and CEO of Live Graphic Systems. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, mate. Great to be here.
So, first of all, tell people what Live Graphic Systems, or LIGAR as people might know it, what do you do?
So, basically, we are a white-labelled automatic graphics platform that helps sports leagues professionalize and scale out their live streams while attracting revenue from brands, and that's really the important part.
Yep. So when we're talking about live, so on video, on live stream, to be able to do all the graphics that's needed, but in an automated manner.
Absolutely. So traditionally with graphics in broadcast, live broadcast, if you think TV broadcast, traditionally that's very hard to do. It's very expensive. It's manual. There's operators, there's developers, there's designers. So we sort of take all of those pain points and we basically automate that to remove the graphics operator, and we do that by using external data sources coming in, which are there for match stats or betting sometimes. And so we remove the graphics operator and then are able to connect brands to that at scale and therefore create a really professional product traditionally in the live streaming area, which is really, really hard to do.
Yep. So take us back, a couple of years. What was your background before LIGAR got started? How did you get into this space?
So I come from the video production background. So I have a production company in VPA Technologies, VPA Productions. That's my background. I come from a sports science background. So interned with the Central Coast Mariners, interned with the Sydney Kings.
Yep.
and sort of came out of university actually trying to help amateur sporting teams do analysis. And to do analysis, you must video that. And so as soon as we started to video it, everyone said, hey, can you live stream it? This was right when YouTube had just released their live streaming API. So it was back, probably 6-7 years ago. And as soon as then you start to live stream, people then say, hey, can I put a graphic on it? Can I put a brand on it? Right? It's kind of a natural progression.
Can we keep the episode score? Because there's that expectation of what we've consumed traditionally, and TV, you have the little bug in the corner, it tells you what the score is, all of that kind of stuff.
And expectation's a great word there, because it's something that we deal with where once you set a level, you can't go back, and everyone only wants more. And so we went down this path and ended up coming up with live graphic systems, or LiGRA as you call it. And then we also looked at the industry and went, well, how do we scale out production? All right, content is king. Everyone's trying to scale that out. How do they do it? Well, it must be automated. And then we looked at the industry and saw that automated cameras are coming. Okay, automated data is coming. And so we sort of wanted to connect those two things, and then from that build a commercial platform from leagues on top. So it's been a very natural progression to pain points along the way.
So it is a matter of pulling in, those data points. So the stats being captured on the side of a basketball court or a soccer field or a football field, and going, well, this data's being captured. People are checking it out on apps. And then the streaming starts happening because people want to be watching it, and like you said, the automated cameras are starting to kick in and just follow and track the play. And so it was very much for you guys like a grassroots play, because like you said, sort of the amateur lower level sports that have people wanting to watch. That's where you started a lot of your work.
Absolutely. So we target the sub-elite all the way down to the grassroots. So we're leaving TV alone. They do that well. They've got big budgets. But we see the growth in the long tail. And obviously, as I said, there's constant push towards how do we produce more content. But in saying that, content still costs money to produce. And so they have to be able to do that, these leagues, in an efficient way. And then they have to be able to monetize that content. And that's where we come in, because as you said, the data exists. At a certain level, doesn't exist at the next level, and that's where we can come in to help replace that as well. But that data exists, and it's going to different areas. As you said, a widget, even sometimes it's going for betting, but we can use that data and then actually give that to the league and say, hey, use this in your graphics, connect brands to this, and now there's an extra layer. We call it the new economy, new digital inventory for the league to be able to actually take to brands and monetize.
Yeah, so that's the thing. So, when I'm talking digital to dollars, you're now saying, hey, here's a new asset you're building
Absolutely.
out. People are watching and consuming this stream. But the issue was, oh, cool, this stream is brought to you by, brand X.
Yes.
And that, and that works in some sort of way, but then you want it.
Needs to look good as well, right? Like that's the thing. As you said, there's an expectation level, and the audience is highly localized but highly engaged.
Yep.
So we always get, hey, well, what does it matter how many people watch this game? And you go, that's not the point. If you're streaming 550 games in a season, which some of our clients have gone from doing 30 games a season to now 534, that's a large aggregated audience, and they're highly engaged. And from a brand, that's actually a very attractive piece. And it's also community sports. So there's a lot of brand equity there. But at the same time, it's still got to look very professional. Because if it's not professional, a brand is not going to want anywhere near it. We're gone are the days of putting 4 logos, watermarks up in each corner of a live stream and a static bug and no halftime stat. Like, people have an expectation, and a brand has an expectation. And so that's where we come in, and then we automate that entire process.
And are you finding, because you've got that aggregated audience and that ties to community, that you're moving away from, Joe the Butcher, and the local brands that, say, the local footy club or local cricket club have been going back to and saying, hey, come and support us, to, oh, hang on, we can actually talk to a bigger brand and talk to media buyers to be in this space because of that highly engaged niche?
Correct. It's actually, it's a bit of both, though. So I think that there is still a place for your local advertiser there, and there has to be, because these are still local
and
teams.
It's community based,
right?
Yep.
However, we have within our technology the ability to tier that sponsorship and to be able to basically sell percentage based ad space within a live stream. So there can still be the home team brings in their brand, the away team brings in their brand, the league has brand campaigns that they're running through our platform, which might be from local businesses, and they might also have a state based business and then a national business, for example. And I think that is important because I think that you still, as they're highly engaged, localized audiences. So I think that there is still much value for a local brand to be able to attach to that. And the difference is that they're being attached in the moments that matter in games. So when we're triggering these graphics and we're triggering these brands, we're triggering them to events. So goal, corner, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's not just getting a sign on a field anymore. It's not just getting your logo as a brand on their website. You can now be in probably the most premium asset, really. And
so you can say, you can go as a, if you're a football product, you can say, oh, we're going to sell, the penalty kick brought to you by, because it's an event that's triggered from the data.
A nice animation that comes out, a really nice creative, and then it goes away, and we can track all of the impressions when things are showing and actually be able to provide reports back to brands and reports back to the league.
So one of the things that's challenging when you offer someone a big solution, and an opportunity, is they don't know what to do with it, right?
Absolutely.
So like, hey, here's this whole digital landscape you can monetize, but they don't. They're so much caught up in the operational piece of actually doing stuff that they're not really fully realizing that. And, you're working in grassroots and amateur sport and that kind of thing where, digital savviness and sales and those kind of things, there's not a big skill set and resource in that space. So how do you, it's great to provide a problem, but if they don't get the right brands and revenue, how do you help them solve that problem?
Well, and that's sort of what we're going through at the moment, is being entirely focused on helping them monetize our platform. And so we're obviously super client focused. And from our point of view, we don't want clients using our software unless they're making money on top of it. But as you said, one of the huge problems is generally these sports associations, or if it's an NSO or an SSO, they're under-resourced, for one, and they don't necessarily have the skill set to be able to sell this new digital inventory of broadcast assets. They've never done that. And so we now have to build product, and we help them with actually being able to monetize that, how they can monetize it, how they should present that to brands. And I think we found more and more that needs to be our core value to our client versus saying, hey, here's this great technology, use it, off you go, good luck. And that's not what
Slap
we do.
Logos on that and you'll be fine, you'll make money.
Exactly.
And then you've come back in 12 months and say, oh, we didn't put any logos on it.
Even to the point of creatives, right? So it's not just logos. I mean, this is nice creatives, but then you say, hey, all the home teams want to be able to put their brand on it. It's like, that's cool. But then you go and ask them and they don't have the capability to provide the creative. So there's a technology play there to help, and then there's just a knowledge base there of helping them actually step through the process of how to connect brands to live sports.
Yeah, because that is the challenge, and I think it's the same one that's seen in the digital space, because you go, it's not so much about the tool, but it's about getting the process around that.
Absolutely.
Because then once you start getting that, brands understanding it and realizing what they can connect with, and the fact it's a new engaged audience, because that audience is not available in other places. And, and live sport is still one of the main drivers for eyeballs and attention. And so
it's the only, if you look at, we talk around how linear TV even is existing, really. A lot of it's still because of live sports. Everything, if you look at Netflix, everyone's sort of gone to VOD and on demand and being able to do it, but live sports is still the premium content that people want to watch live, and they want to go to one place to watch it. And that's where we come in. And then I think also we're finding that there is audience there that people don't quite realize. So football, Victoria recently went to streaming, announced the day before, and then for the first round streamed all of their games, which we were a big part of. I think they had 10,000 unique viewers that hit all of those games across different locations, obviously. And that was announced the day before to an audience that no one probably knew existed. And then that sparked conversation about the championship and Div 2. And there's an audience there waiting to be monetized, and actually questions from the fans of, oh, this is great. How are Football Victoria going to monetize this? This is great for the game.
Yep.
But before, when you're streaming one game on a Saturday, one game on a Sunday, everyone goes, oh, the numbers aren't that good. And you go, well, yeah, that's because you're not streaming your entire league.
Yeah.
If you stream your entire league, the audience will be there.
And so how have you seen, you've been in the broadcast, in the streaming space for a long time. How have you seen the platforms and the opportunities in that space change? Because like you said, YouTube opened up its API,
Facebook followed, Twitter followed,
so they've all opened up and said, hey, we're the place for live. Twitter has made the move and said, hey, we want to be in the media space. How has that both presented opportunities, but also has there been any difficulties in that space? Where are you seeing that landscape of live streaming at the minute?
It's content wars at the moment, to be honest, and it's exciting because I think that there is many options now for sports leagues versus it used to be just throw it up on YouTube. And YouTube's a great platform, don't get me wrong, but now we're seeing clients push to YouTube, Facebook, Twitter all at the same time. We're also seeing OTT platforms come to the fore, and whether or not they're white labeled or they're coming with a brand attached, but I think that's also important. And what's happening is that this is creating a bit of a rights war as well. I think sports leagues are realizing that they have multiple different assets in regards to rights that they can sell as well. And then that obviously feeds back growth into the game to be able to produce the content in the first place. So it's a very interesting space at the moment, and I'm not sure if anyone's going to particularly win or one platform's going to win. I mean, we've seen numbers. Facebook used to be large and it's dropped off a little bit more. It's gone back to YouTube as a platform. Twitter, I think, is great because the sports community sits on Twitter and debates on Twitter. So I don't see anyone winning, but it's definitely an interesting space because soon we're seeing that these leagues are starting to control and own the look and feel of their content versus just giving it away and allowing anyone to put a logo on it. It's actually going back that they own it and then they say, we're going to monetize it.
And it is becoming interesting because 4 or 5 years ago, if we're looking at the big deals, of the pro leagues, they were using the Facebooks and the Twitters and YouTubes, Amazons and the like as leverage to keep the TV guys in.
Yes.
Right. And so we're going to go talk to Facebook's going to take some of it. They're going to and Facebook and all of the social networks had got all the content for free.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
Hey, come onto our platforms. We've got all this.
Got the audience.
We've got audience. And then, now all the sports are going, well, hang on, why are we still on these platforms? If we go on TV.
And if they monetize it on those platforms, guess who's taking a clip of that? Yeah. And so that's where I think these white labeling OTT platforms are interesting because the leagues are starting to go, no, we're not just going to put it on our Facebook page where we might do one game a week. But if you want to keep watching this, come to our platform. Yeah. And I think that because on their platform, they can control all the commercialization around that. Yeah. And unless someone is going to come and buy the rights and say, hey, we're going to pay you money for it to stick on our platform, don't necessarily give it all away for free.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be more of those, hybrid models.
Yes.
Bring them into our own house, your own OTT.
Yes.
That
apps,
kind of thing.
Chromecast. I mean, everyone now, if you go through Twitter, and we're producing a lot of content at the moment on a weekend. So, I scroll through Twitter and I see people. Everyone's watching it now. Chromecast up on a big, and it looks fantastic. I mean, our job is to make it look fantastic, and it's got to hold up on a big screen. But there's huge opportunity there. I mean, this is people watch live sports on big TVs, and that's how people watch it, and it looks great.
Yeah. So it is interesting to see and the cost of getting in.
Yes.
Has dropped dramatically. 8 years ago, 7 years ago, you had to have a specific box that did encoding.
Yes.
That put it up and you needed all this bandwidth.
Manual. I mean, that's what, manual graphics operator you need to have. Even now, obviously, you've still got manual cameraman, human cameraman, but that is being replaced in time as well. It won't be overnight. But there's still many manual processes to push it out to all of the places that are all being automated. So the cost of that production comes down, which then means you can produce more content, which means bigger eyeballs, which means greater commercial opportunity. And this is only growing. It's not going anywhere.
So what are some of the, you mentioned the NPL and the announcement recently. What are some of the big key partnerships you guys have made in the last 6 months? Because, I think the last time we caught up was in New York,
yes.
where we had a impromptu Sports Geek Nation meetup, and I think we had 10 or 12 people turn up in New York. I think 90% of them were Australian New Zealanders, but that's what happens when you find out that there's people are in the same town. Since that time, you guys have made a whole bunch of announcements, both with leagues and rights holders. Take us through a bit of a roll call of what you've done in the last couple of months.
Yeah, so the last couple of months have been really exciting. Obviously, we work fairly seasonal, obviously with the winter season preparing to kick off here with some leagues kicked off. So it's been exciting working in the football space, so with the National Premier Leagues and working across the 4 different states at the moment, and obviously the two major ones that have kicked off recently being Football New South Wales and Football Victoria. And they're producing a lot of content. As I said, 500 and 400 sort of games each in a season, going from basically 30 games. So it's a huge kick up. So that's been really, really exciting, obviously because of those audience numbers, to see what's there and get that feedback. We're also at the moment kicking off the AFL Under-18s national competition, which is fantastic as well. So for the last 2 years, we've been doing the South Australian AFL automated graphics, which has been great. We're also working and do graphics for Cricket Australia for their content that does not go to TV, and we work with providers, our production partners for that, as well as our data providers, which has been fantastic. And we've been doing a fair bit in basketball as well, connected to FIBA Live Stats, which is great. That sort of gives us a global presence. So at the moment, they're sort of, I guess, the 4 major sports for us, but we have plans in the next 6 months to a year to basically sort of push global and allow leagues and even clubs to self-serve themselves with our platform as well, which will be fantastic. So yeah, it's just been a really exciting 6 months, because this is we're getting to a point now where we're doing a fair amount of content, and it's all working automatically, and so obviously we've got to watch all of that, but that's great to see, because you sort of see the future with that. It's all good and well if you're doing 1 game on a Saturday, 1 game on a Sunday, but when you're kicking off 20 concurrent live games for one sport, and then you've got another 7 live games at this sport over here, and then you've got cricket kicking off with this amount of games, it's a lot of content.
And from all of those, are there any particular platforms that they are being rolled out on? Or is it across multiple platforms? It's across multiple. I mean, it depends on the rights holder. So, I mean, one thing that we don't interfere in where they want to put their content. We are there to professionalize that content and allow them to actually connect brands to that in an engaging way. But where they want to go, we are completely agnostic. We obviously have recommendations, but a lot of the time, as I said, the social media platforms or its particular OTT platforms. You're looking at even things get pushed into KO Sports. You got cricket.com.au. So you're really part of the broadcast, and wherever it goes, it doesn't matter.
Exactly. It doesn't matter.
Do you have insights into then some of the analytics and data of the viewers? Because that's a really key part of it's cool, we're on the broadcast, but it's who's watching the broadcast?
Absolutely. And so that's one thing that we've actually getting a lot of feedback from clients is we've worked out that, hey, they're producing all of this content, but then they go, who's watching? How can we get this? And they've got that data sitting in there, but a lot of them aren't using any sort of aggregated platform at the moment to pull that data in. And so once again, that's part of the knowledge piece for us of helping them say, hey, all right, you've got all of this audience and you want to monetize it. We can show you how, but we need to really look at that audience. We need to segment that audience, and then we need to help you package that together to take that out to brands.
And is that, and sort of going back to the resourcing and skill set in the different, they're not looking at that. Again, there's so much on the operational. We've got to get all these games out, and we've got to promote the games, that they're stepping back, 30,000 foot view of, and now that you've got the data, now the fact you've got the games flowing through, that you can go to the guys at Football Vic and go to Anthony and say, hey, this is what a Football Victoria fan looks like watching an NPL every week. This is the person that watches every week. This is someone who watches half an hour. You'll be starting to get some of that data this year.
And that's I think the exciting part is because when they weren't producing that content, they didn't have the audience. They couldn't prove that they had an audience. So it becomes a cause and effect problem is, hey, we think we've got an asset, but we don't because we can't afford to stream it. And now that they can afford to stream it and they can produce that amount of content, they now have the problem of going, well, oh, great, we've got this audience, but who are they? How do we monetize it?
Yeah.
And absolutely, that is something that we're highly interested in talking to our clients every single day of helping them understand what that audience is.
And is there, from a platform point of view, are there platforms that are better at telling you that info than others? Like, where's the best place to start getting some of that data?
Yeah, so obviously within YouTube, within Facebook, within Twitter, they have their back-end platforms and then their analytics area, which is good. I think the problem is they're not standardized across the platforms, right? Like a 3-second view what's a 3-second view in Facebook? Do we care about 3-second views? Do we care about 10-second views? Where do we actually draw?
They're also not. They don't want to be uniform because They want to keep it their own audience themselves.
And we all know that these platforms are only actually showing us 10% of the total metrics because they're keeping it to monetize, right? So I think that is hard, but we do have to set a standard. And I think what is harder is that the leagues themselves need a platform to aggregate that, right? To be able to look at one dashboard. And these exist, and I think it's something that we will potentially look at in the future. But it is a challenge, and it's brand new. Yeah. It's brand new. They don't know. That's normally they're just looking at, hey, our engagements, we got this many likes, we've grown our Facebook page to 100,000. But then it's people actually watching and impressing, especially when it's about branded content is, who's watching it? How long are they watching it for? When this brand shows, how do we tell the brand that? I mean, that's hard. They're not trained to do this.
But it is funny how a high bar and a high expectation, a high standard that digital is pushed.
Absolutely.
They're like, tell us exactly who. And then you're like, go back to traditional and you're like, how's TV ratings done again? The radio ratings.
Sign on the field?
Yeah.
Brand used to be sign on the field. You're like, how do we know?
So it's quite funny that, that there's so much pushback or challenging of all the numbers, and they need to be challenged, and we do need to get better data and that kind of stuff. But when you're comparing the data sets that you're getting off video platforms with, what TV is, and you dive into what TV audience is and how they get those numbers and those kind of things, it's like, I find it quite hilarious when they're like, but you're quite okay to be putting your logo on a bus and just having it drive by and someone tells you that that's worth something.
I know, it's kind of it's funny because it's brands that now expect much more from that. But I think that what's interesting about community sports is there's still very much brand equity there. Yep. So, and what I mean by that is that, big brands or its local brands want to connect with community sports, but traditionally it's just been very hard and they actually don't get anything back for that. It's kind of it's just seen as, hey, let's just throw some money there because it looks good for our brand to do that. Yep. But they were never getting actually any metrics back of like, is this making an impact? Yep. And I think this is where there is an opportunity of like, hey, you're not just throwing $10,000 at your local club for that sign on the field because it makes you feel good. Yep. You're actually going to be able to get metrics of, hey, people are engaging with your brand and people appreciate that. And I think that there is a huge opportunity there of just for localized brands as well as national brands to connect to community sports.
So we've discussed a lot about sports and how Liga have brought broadcast quality graphics to the live stream.
Yep.
One of the big players in the streaming space is gaming. I'm standing here in my Gravitas t-shirt now. Absolutely. In esports. What's your take and what's your position and where do you see you guys potentially being in the esports space?
Look, we've studied extensively over the last probably 2 months. Yep. It's a fantastic space. I'm a huge fan of video gaming because I was a gamer before this was this existed. Local LAN tournaments, that sort of thing. It's interesting. I think it's still developing. I think especially from we're just talking about the data that brands get back. I think that is not as developed as it needs to be. I think obviously from us to be able to actually trigger some of our events where we're relying on external data or our own data, and that still needs to develop within.
That's the thing. You've got the infrastructure in sport with Sport Radar and Genius Sports and Champion Data or those types that are feeding you these events.
Yes,
and that's not as well developed in the esports space from a title by title basis.
Yes,
because it's publisher
driven
and it's their API, and so that's been something that I guess I've learned like with the OPL and Riot and trying to figure out is there a way that I can get an alert or an API that says oh, Barron's up, or someone just took a tower. How do I get those alerts?
Yes.
Like that's what your system needs. You need that. You need that input.
Yes. So I think that there is definitely huge opportunity there. And from a technology point of view, we integrate directly. We've proven that it's done. It's more also for us at this point, focusing on the clients that we do have that are paying us money to help them monetize their broadcasts. And for us, being a small but growing company and a technology startup, we really want to be client focused at the moment. And I think that's got to be the front of everything that we do. And so at the moment, yes, while we've looked at the esports industry, I think that we're really excited about where we are at right now, working with the clients in the sports
completely
world.
And the thing is, I mean, and this is what excites me about the space is the pain points that you've been talking about. A graphics operator that has to hit a button when something happens, so it happens on the broadcasts. Yes. That's starting to happen in esports. So we're seeing like the European, the LEC, League of Legends there. Like when the Baron play comes up, it's brought to you by Shell.
Yes.
And the the broadcast changes. It looks super professional, and then the timer comes up and it's counting the gold. Like that's all of stuff. That's the exact same use case of what you're doing in sport.
And that's the way that it works is that happens at the top first, and then our job is to bring that from the top and bring it all the way down into the grassroots and have everyone benefit from that sort of technology.
Yeah, and so I think that's where the exciting piece is, and some of that will be powered by the data people. Some it will be powered by the data will be powered by gambling. Like they need that they need that data to be able to to market what they're doing. So it's a bit chicken and egg as well.
Yes,
like
absolutely.
What will push it? To be interested to see where it goes.
And there's automated data is 100% a thing. So whether it's machine learning and AI and object recognition, et cetera, as that develops further and further and further, you then remove the need for even a human putting in data.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's when you hit that, you hit scale, and then you've got automated vision, or you've got these video game streamers who are streaming at home. So they are their own production company. They are their own streamer. They're their own rights holder. And when they're doing all of that and you're connecting those dots together, then there'll be huge commercial opportunity. Yeah.
And that's the thing at the moment, like there's a bit of waiting for the publishers to provide it.
Yes.
And like you said, it can be there's every chance it'll be automated. So the businesses that have had, like I've been to Sports Radar in Minneapolis, and there's people there watching games from around the world, logging all these events to power this beast. But we are getting to the point where you can just have computer vision and go, oh, that just happened.
That just happened.
And
absolutely.
Like
trigger an event.
That will just start being generated, whether the publisher is part of it or not.
Exactly.
And so I think that innovation is exciting.
Yes, it's happening. I can tell you it's happening.
And then it powers things like fantasy and different ways to follow the games and different reasons to follow the games and a new point of view and bringing in new types of fans. And that's not esports. That's, like you said, that's all sports.
Yes, absolutely.
To be able to, and then that in turn drives the broadcast. Why am I watching? Oh, because I'm playing along or I'm following in a certain
You're engaging in a different way. I think there's huge opportunity in sports around fantasy engagement and whether or not it's fantasy graphics versus watching traditional graphics, and you as the user being able to select with that. Atomic advertising as well, where it's you see a different brand because you've engaged with that brand versus the next audience. There is huge opportunity. And for us, it's about
integrating all of that tech into what you do.
Yeah, exactly. But also listening to our clients of what they need. It's a one step at a time process. We don't want to overwhelm them either, because as you said, this is a new asset for them. They've suddenly, and they haven't hired more people to deal with this asset. Yeah. And so I think initially it's, hey, this is what we do. Can you handle this? Can we help you with this? Let's talk every day about helping you. And then working the technology along with that. I think that's important, and that's focus for us.
So take us through how a potential client, whether and they're most likely a rights holder more than a league or someone that says we own the rights to our competition, and they go, we want to stream it. How do they engage you, and then what are the steps they need to do to go from that conversation to what the football did and said, hey, we're going to roll out 500 pieces, and it's not flick the switch type of thing. So what are the steps that they would have to go through?
So obviously we normally deal directly with rights holders, but to do that we also have production partners, we have data partners as well, obviously, and that is important because, as you said, doing one game a week to doing 12 games a week doesn't happen overnight. And so we help them with those technology solutions and those suppliers of who they need and who they might need or who they're currently using. So we really just help the leagues do an audit on how are you streaming at the moment? Are you streaming? And work them through that process. And a big thing we need to do is convince them to stream more games. And obviously that's scary because sometimes these leagues are just keeping up with the Joneses. They've seen this league over here stream one game. So
but a lot of it is you've most likely got all of these pieces in place, right?
Yes.
And you're just not doing it like you are.
Well, a lot of time the data's already there.
The data's being captured.
Yes, yeah.
You're most likely videotaping or recording all games from a coaching purposes point of view. So to turn that into why aren't you just streaming it? And so it's a little bit of just ticking a few more boxes to sort of say, is that sort of like, again, not ideal, but like sort of that ideal client that's ready to take that next step where they've got all the pieces? Because if you go to someone and say, oh no, we don't actually broadcast any of our games, or we don't have a data. Like you're not ready yet, but if you've got most of those pieces, it's just you guys are like glue guys.
Yeah, exactly. We and that's exactly what we do. We connect it together, but also make it commercially viable. And I think that's the difference. Is it's all good and well if you're just streaming all of your games, but if you actually cannot work out a way to monetize that, and then you don't know where it's going, and you're not controlling that, and you've just got random logos on there because someone's producing it, and it's just a hobby or whatever it is, right?
Yep.
That actually doesn't push the league forward. And often they can get caught up operationally in it, and it becomes more of a job for them. And so therefore, if they cannot work out a way to monetize that content, it actually gets in their way. Now, that's not great when you've got fans that want to watch it and you've got a league that doesn't really know what they're doing. And so, yes, ideally for us, the client is looking to produce more content and then professionalize that content and monetize it. And to be honest, that is where the industry is going because, as you said, there is technology that's coming into play, so cost of production is coming down, and therefore there is actually a reason to jump into it and then to monetize it. So, we wouldn't have this business unless the timing was right to take it there. And that was decisions we've made, and obviously automating it was a big part of seeing where that industry goes as well.
Cool. So where can people go to find out more about live graphic systems, or LiGAR as we've been talking about it? Where is the best place for them to go?
So, probably our website, although that's getting a complete revamp and rebrand currently. So I'd probably say wait a bit. Wait a bit, then jump on there.
No one's ever happy with their website, myself included. So LIGR systems.com?
Yes. Or you can do livegraphicsystems.com. I don't know, I have to ask the team. We've probably got liger.com, liger.io, everything around it. So that's there. LinkedIn is big for us, obviously working with rights holders and they generally sit on those platforms and they promote themselves through LinkedIn as well as Twitter, but we're not as active on there. So that's probably the best. And
So Luke McCoy, follow him up on LinkedIn and is probably the best method to catch up with you and ask any further questions, because it is, it's not a plug it in and we're good to go type of system. You do have to take that rights holder and all the partners on a journey, but the idea is, and it very much fits into what we do with the digital to dollars. It's like, what the audience is. This is going to be some premium content.
Exactly.
We can figure out what platforms this is going to best work on. We can work out this valuation, this rate card, and bring some more money in. And so you're actually bringing in,
absolutely,
and then you end up with an asset that potentially, you've got the live streaming component that you potentially one of these OTT services or even a broadcaster can say, oh, actually, that's got some audience. Can we have that?
And unless you start,
you can't sell your rights if you're not producing anything.
Exactly.
So I want to finish off with the closing 5. Do you remember the first sports event you ever attended?
I do, actually, and it's an interesting one. Funnily enough, I was playing a lot of sports as a kid and not going to as many games. However, I remember actually coming down, I think I would have had to have been 9 or 10. down to Melbourne from Sydney to watch the World Cup of skating. Actually, I was a skateboarder as a kid. I
thought it was an ice. I thought you were going into ice
skateboarding.
skating.
Yeah, skateboarding, and it was live. I saw Tony Hawk do a 900 at the time. I mean, it's crazy to just even think back. It took him 10 attempts or something to do it, but saw him live in Melbourne, and this was 20 years ago, basically.
But that's like seeing Michael Jordan in a free throw dunk, isn't
Yeah.
it? Talking about legends.
It's a real thing, yeah. And so that sticks out in my mind more than anything else, really.
Very cool. Yeah, never had someone go with the action sports analogy, but just seeing Tony Hawk the first time was probably a good one. Yeah. You would have been to a few sporting events in your time, talking to different parties and partners. Have you got a favourite food memory, or do you have a go-to food when you go to a sports event?
For me, it's just got to be the meat pie. Meat pie and a beer is great. Yep. And I was really actually excited when I saw that. Was it the meat pie with the 76ers with Ben Simmons? Was it?
Yeah, they've been the 4-20 guys.
4-20 relationship. Yeah, I thought that was a cool touch as an Aussie. That's cool.
And it definitely is the go-to food when I go to the footy. What's the first app you open in the morning?
For me, I probably shouldn't, but it's Gmail. It's email, and it's a habit I'm trying to get out of. But I'm an inbox zero guy, so I like to have everything deleted out.
Do you have any tools that help you keep the inbox zero? Do you have
me?
Just you?
I've just always done it.
So do all emails hit your inbox?
So no, I do have them segmented.
Okay.
But in saying that, I'm pretty fastidious in just basically deleting out if it's some spam or something coming through. It's just a quick go through, delete straight away at the start of the day. Get inbox zero.
Have you heard of so I use a tool called SaneBox. Okay. Have you heard of that?
No.
So sane as in mentally. It scans your, so it's a Gmail add-on, scans your inbox and goes, oh, that's a newsletter. So it automatically goes to Sane News. Oh, that's a notification like a Twitter or a Twitch or a YouTube. It goes to Sane Bulk. And so in the end, you end up only the key stuff ends up in your inbox. And then you have another one called Sane Later, which is sort of like it's sort of stuff you should look at, but it's not super important.
It's not urgent. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So it's sort of in that, that sort of, and it's actually, it gets it. And then you can train it. Like if someone, your mum sends you an email once and you're like, oh, hang on, that goes in the Sane Later. It's like, no, that has to go in inbox. So you can do some training on it, and it's very, so it's very, very good in that sense. And you can also do, it's got some reminder, like boomerang type features where you can say, oh, can you remind me to ping Luke again in 2 months? And it pops it back in your inbox.
Yeah.
But I found SaneBox, if you want to try to do that inbox zero and also subscribe to a whole bunch of stuff.
Okay. That's good.
It's actually is pretty good. I've used it for a while. It does end up, I think I've got a Sane Sports Biz because I've subscribed to every sports team's newsletter.
Yeah.
So they all end up in there. But you still have to go, better go check them every now and again, so they can end up, you don't end up reading all the newsletters you subscribe to, but sometimes that's a good thing. Obviously, people don't do that with Sports Geek News. You obviously get that all every week. Exactly. Just do the plug.
That's urgent.
Is there someone that you think the podcast listeners should follow and why? Or someone that you consume a lot of?
So I use podcasts for two reasons. So I listen to a lot of NBA podcasts. So The Ringer is massive for me, and I try and do that to get my mind off work.
Yep. But first Pearl Jam, right?
Yes, first Pearl Jam. But then I also listen to try and get as much diversity in my listening as possible. So Joe Rogan is really good for that. And then I guess down that same path, Sam Harris and sort of within that circle. But Joe, I do a lot of driving, living on the Central Coast and driving to Sydney some days. And so he's, 3-hour podcast really is just one trip for me at times, back and forward. And that's I would just recommend he has so many guests, varied guests that you can sort of choose. Hey, I want MMA, or I want a doctor, or I want a space. And that's interesting to me because you're not going to, not going to have those normal conversations in life. So you can get that through.
It is, I do find it interesting, like talking in podcast circles, the debate of what is the ideal length of a podcast,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And that's, sometimes when we're about to start an interview and people go, how long is this podcast going to go for? I said, well, as long as you're interesting, that's we'll keep going. If it's a really short podcast, you're finding out. So,
what do you find? What do you find?
For mine, like, again, I try to get Sports Geek in the 45 to an hour range. So I sort of try to keep it in a natural commute.
Yes.
So you can sort of like get on the train and you end up where you are.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
So you're not sort of halfway. But I don't think, again, as long as if it's interesting, and hopefully people are still listening and haven't tuned out right now, that would be ironic. That they're still engaged.
Yes.
And so, Rogan does, 2-3 hour marathons, but it's like, because it's engaging.
Yeah.
Right.
And instead, talking about interesting, where it's something that's so left field that people almost listen to it because they would never ever listen to that, and then suddenly they get stuck in it. And I think that he's producing so much content that his idea is not that you listen to every single one of his podcasts. And trust me, I'm probably close. Yeah. But I think that you get to choose yourself really of, hey, this one I'm going to fit in. Whereas I presume that most of your audience would be tuning in regularly at most episodes because they're just keeping up to date with the industry versus
and so the way I look at it as a podcast producer and a consumer as well. Unfortunately, my commute's now a 10-minute walk, which is annoying me because it's eating into my podcast time, right? But I also overlook the freeway just here, and I look out on my balcony every morning and I just wave to all these podcast listeners because they're stuck in traffic. Yes. And I'm like, if they're listening to the radio, they just haven't started listening to podcasts yet.
Exactly.
And so I look at that those people have 10 to 12 hours of listening a week. And so that, so I'm competing with Joe Rogan or whatever to get my 45 minutes in that week.
Yes.
I think it is an interesting space. I think the podcast discovery piece is still an issue. It's like you get locked in and these are the ones and you're like, you don't know that there's another podcast. So I always like, when someone says, it's a podcast, so what ones do you listen to?
Yes.
So I know Joe Rogan, Sam Harris, I haven't heard of. So it's like, I'll go check it out, what it is, that kind of stuff. Lastly, what social media platform is your MVP? So you might answer that as yourself, Luke, or maybe from a perspective of, Ligar clients and what they're doing.
Yeah, so I think for me, I enjoy LinkedIn and Twitter, but LinkedIn, I think from a business point of view and connecting and being able to network and keep up to date that's important for us as a business. On the Liger side, in regards to clients, I think that YouTube, and especially because that was the first ever platform that we really streamed to, even on my the production side of the business. And it's been interesting to see how it sort of started, and then Facebook came, and then Twitter came with Periscope, and now YouTube's almost going back up again. It's kind of like
Facebook was throwing punches for a while.
Yeah, and I mean, it was Zuckerberg made it. We're going to live, but YouTube is just a great streaming platform in general, and sort of know.
I think the next 18 months is going to be watching YouTube and Twitch.
Yes.
Yeah, go at it. And
absolutely. And Twitch, I mean, the numbers on Twitch are crazy, but the numbers on YouTube gaming are also just crazy.
Yeah, but it's also the fact that Twitch, even though it is, gaming and esports centric, they are pivoting to
they are. They
want more sports. So they've got the NFL, Thursday night games.
The G League is on there.
G League is on there. They're also asking partners, why don't you stream on our platform? And they're pitching the audience more than the platform.
Yes.
So it's going to be interesting to see how that pivot goes.
And it's Google versus Amazon
as well.
So it's kind of just
and sort of going back before about the analytics and stuff, what you get.
Yeah.
You get far better data from what I can see on YouTube.
Absolutely you do.
Than Twitch.
I've heard Twitch has been going backwards with data to a point. Like they've sort of gone, hey, we actually want to draw more of it back.
Yeah. So that's one of the challenges Twitch has. Or I guess one of the challenges people who are using Twitch have. And so, we could see some seismic, that battle is going to be fascinating over the next 12 to 18 months. What do the big gaming giants do do they stay where the audience? Because it's hard to move an audience, but we've seen it done. We've seen it done before. Whether it be a professional sports now moving to a pay TV, OTT, the fans will move. They'll complain a lot, but if they really want to watch the sport, they'll move. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. So. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Go check out Live Graphic Systems. Luke McCoy, connect with him on LinkedIn. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Great. Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
New workshops on audience, content, distribution, valuation, and pitch following Sports Geek's Digital to Dollars process. Go to digitaltodollars.com.
Thanks again to Luke McCoy. Please connect with him on LinkedIn. The links will be in the show notes, sportsgeekhq.com/233. Or you can send him a tweet, Luke McCoy 27, and ask him a question. Ask him how this system works, how it could be integrated with your broadcast potentially, and keep an eye on what he is doing across multiple leagues, especially in this market, but then no doubt around the world. Before I wrap up, Digital to Dollars, I just want to give a bit of an update on how it can work. If you're a first-time listener and don't know, a lot of the work that we do is now based on the Digital to Dollars process. It's something that we're currently using and have been using in our esports business around Gravitas, and it follows 5 pillars. Know your audience. Diving in on the data to understand your audience segments and who you are engaging with and who you're potentially under engaging with. Knowing your content, which informs a content review, looking at everything that you're producing across all your different platforms and why you're doing it, who you're doing it for, what's working, what's not working. Know your distribution is a review of all of your platforms, what you're doing on the different social media channels, how you're using platforms like email, how you can reach your fans and understanding what is working in that space, which leads into the piece around knowing your value and deciding what the value is of all of the different content pieces and the platforms that you're putting them on, so you can go back to your sponsors to say, this is the value we're bringing in producing content for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and the like. And then it's all wraps up into Know Your Pitch, where we start working with your commercial team to help them better understand what digital sponsorship and digital activations look like, and so they can start getting some upsides and true revenue and value out of your partners for the content that you're producing, but then also the campaigns and activations that you're doing. So that 5-step process helps bring a team together, gets your commercial and digital teams working on the same page, and the goal is to drive more revenue from your digital assets. So please get in touch, Sean at sportsgeekhq.com, or check out digitaltodollars.com. The process can work in multiple ways, working with a team over a workshop. I've done it at a league level, working with multiple teams. So there's a few different ways that it can work. But please get in touch if you're interested in driving more revenue from your digital assets. An update from the esports side of the business. We're currently in off-season with Gravitas. Recently just launched our OCS team, Oceanic Challenger Series, which is the feeder team to our OPL team. Brandon's done a terrific job in recruiting team players for that team. It's going to be interesting to see how that season kicks off, which will be a few days' time. May 2, the first match is on the Thursday nights. OCS games will be. Additionally, excitingly, sgesports.com, its updated site, is now live. The beauty of doing the podcast on a regular basis and doing these types of pieces, sometimes I say those things and they're not live when I say them, but by the time you listen to it, it will be live. It's a bit of say it and make it happen. So the new SG Esports website is now live, and it's really focused around our 4-pillar pitch that I discussed in being accepted and we sort of refined as part of the Hype Spin Accelerator Bootcamp. So our 4 main pillars of SG Esports as an esports media business are sponsorship, and so the content and sponsorship options that are available around Gravitas as an asset. So we're building our sponsorship offers and products around that. Membership, which is developing a membership product for the esports space and for Gravitas fans. We're getting very close to be able to launching that. We've also formed another important pillar is grassroots, and we've formed a community partnership with the Sumner Society, which I'm really excited to get involved with because they're down at the grassroots, effectively below the OCS, and providing players who potentially could be playing OCS and OPL, but also allows us to connect, have deep connections with the gamer community in the League of Legends space. So really looking forward to working with Keisha and the team at Sumner Society. And then our last one is our technology partnerships, sort of modelled by the work that we've already done with Pickstar, and hopefully we'll have some more announcements in that space soon, helping sports technology firms better understand the esports space and better understand how they can engage in that space. Just from the sponsorship offer point of view, I'll sort of give you an update of what we're trying to do for our second split. Our second split starts in June. And so again, like the first split that started in January, we will have a 10-week season. Gravitas will be on the broadcast on Twitch and YouTube on a Friday and a Saturday night. And so we've got a few different, I guess traditional sponsorships would say we put logos on jerseys, they get seen in the broadcast. We do some content pieces, add some logos to socials, and potentially do a campaign. And ideally, we would have partners that are on board at a principal and a major way, sponsorship sort of way, to be the key jersey partners and those kind of things. What we've seen at the at the moment, and the conversation we've had with potential sponsors, is just the appetite for esports is there, and they're considering the space. They're just not quite ready to make a large commitment to the space without the information and their lack of knowledge in the space. So we are developing a major sponsorship at a test and learn price. So what we are looking to pitch into the market, and it will be out in the market again by the time this podcast goes out, is a major partnership with every single team that we will potentially verse against. So there's seven other teams that we will oppose over the season. We'll be playing 3 matches over that 10-week period as we go through the 7-round robin. So we are pitching that a sponsor will be a sponsor for us against our team. We're going to be developing a jersey for that sponsor, so we're going to have different jerseys for every single opponent to give us a few different looks and around from a match-to-match point of view. So they'll get that major sponsorship feel with the logo on the jersey and on the shoulder for visibility in Twitch and YouTube. And then they'll have game day rights around all of the content that we produce pre-game and post-game interviews and the like, as well as a dedicated content piece that will run throughout the season. So they will be able to intersperse between their game days. It might happen on week 2 and week 5 and week 8, as an example. And then also we'll do a data capture campaign, whether it be a form of a competition or a quiz, based around the sponsored goals. So if you are interested in sponsoring or entering into the world of sponsorship in esports, please reach out. If you're a sponsorship executive and want to sort of know more around the process, I'm happy to, and I'd love your feedback on the proposal that we're putting together and how we're pitching it, and just what you think about it. The beauty, I think, and the exciting part of being in esports is to rethink the model a little bit. And so to be able to launch different jerseys and have different sponsors on those jerseys and enable someone to have effectively 3 touch points throughout the season to give them a bit of a length across the season, but without breaking the bank and not tackling hitting the budget too hard. So we hope to have that at a test and learn price. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to me, Sean at sportsgeekhq.com. For more info. I'd really love to, I'd love to hear your thoughts, and looking forward to seeing a few brands come on board with Team Gravitas and SG Esports over the coming weeks. And so keep an eye out for those type of announcements. Last call to action. Last week, we opened up Sports Geek Nation again. It was open for 1 week. If you're listening to this on the day of or the next day of release, it is still open. So go to sportsgeeknation.hype. So sportsgeeknation.com/hype. You can join Sports Geek Nation via that link. It will be closed in May. So if you want to get in to join the group, be part of the weekly AMAs, ask the questions, talk to people, connect with different people from around the world, I would love to have you on board. You can sign up then. As I said, we're only opening it up in limited amounts throughout the year. So if you're listening to this and you've been wondering, hey, I want to be part of Sports Geek Nation and I want to connect with different people, how can I talk to people in the US and Europe, and I'm planning trips and I want to share best practice, that is all what Sports Geek Nation is about. So go to sportsgeeknation.com/hype, which we've opened up for 1 week as a celebration of being accepted in the Hype Spin Accelerator, which I'm really enjoying so far. That's it from me for this episode. As always, please get in touch. And if you want to pick my brain, please book in a session. Simply go to sportsgeekhq.com/pickmybrain. Until next episode, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
Follow our League of Legends esports team at gravitas.gg. For more resources, go to sportsgeekhq.com. Looking for new campaign ideas to drive new and fresh data and leads? Contact Sean to find out how SportsGeek can help you drive fans into your stadium. It's all about the cheeks in the seats.